How you doing?
Good, yourself?
I can't complain, man. My name is Joe DeJesus. I am the product manager for PSB, and I just wanted to go through our newest series, or the series that's about to launch, which is Imagine. So basically the way that the tiers of PSB work, and they have for the past 50 years, is that we set it up in a striated point, kind of like in the car industry. So you've got your Formula One vehicle, which we call our synchrony level. That's pure research oriented. It's driven by research. We don't bring out synchrony unless we have something that we can demonstrably say is better than the previous version. It takes a long time. Very often, like a decade can go by before we launch synchrony again. But the wonderful thing about that is during that time period, we do an embarrassingly large amount of research. We learn quite a few things that will be incorporated in that design. And very much like the car industry, what you establish at the Formula One level, you eventually trickle down to the mid-level and then eventually down to the entry level. That was kind of the intent when we designed it. But with the speaker industry, it's more than just the traditional, conventional floor standing and bookshelf. It's also the driver complement that would go into the support channels of center channel and surround channels. So at the same time that we were working on the flagship series, which is Synchrony, the Imagine series, which is already in existence, that's where we figured trickle down would happen. And eventually down to the entry level, which is Alpha, which is our entry level series. So as Synchrony was being worked on, or the research was being done, we launched PWM, which stands for, by the way, Performance Wall Mount. And the emphasis is on the performance side. We believe that a good on-wall should have same characteristics as a good center channel. And in essence, we wanted to have kind of a 6-blade knife that the performance was so good that it would become the matching center channel for Synchrony. And eventually, depending on the price point, be the matching center channel for Imagine series. So a lot of the driver complement, a lot of the research that was done for the flagship Synchrony lineup was incorporated in PWM. It actually ended up launching first before Synchrony, just because of Synchrony is just such a much more bigger project. And then Synchrony launched, and we saw that it was good. And then that trickled down. We had a brief period of time where everything that you applied in Synchrony, we had time to pause and look at how we applied it and tried to come up with a version that would eventually be able to have a derivative down to much lower price points, and ended up with Imagine, which is my first love these days. It's a wonderful thing because I always wanted to get a product into somebody's home at, let's say, $700 pair of bookshelves that went so far beyond what they ever expected that it should surprise people. It should be something that they talk about. By the time we learned all this stuff from designing Synchrony and from designing PWM, all of a sudden we were trying to build in a completely different envelope, price point wise. But everything that we learned about porting, everything that we learned about the driver design, and also trying to make it at a price point that was a little bit more achievable by people. And there has to be, I believe, a ratio from what you do at the Formula One level to what we'll say the luxury level. We came up with a product where that, hitting the right price point, we were able to do things that we hadn't in the past. Aesthetically speaking, we wanted to go with a very clean, kind of minimalist look, because when people say that's a very American-looking speaker, that's a very European-looking speaker. I want to look good on any continent and any kind of space, but more importantly, I want it to be a speaker that people live with and don't have to worry about a lot of the tropes that you do with a bigger, better speaker, where it needs to be out from the wall this much, it needs to be this far apart, it needs X amount of amplification in order to make a go of it. No, I want it to be a product that somebody brings into their home and they can live with, and it's relatively easy to apply. So, from everything from the porting system that we've done, which, I can only tell you the way it measures. Put it on out from a shelf, yeah, it sounds good. Put it close to a back wall, it's not going to be embarrassingly bad, it's not going to give itself away. Power-wise, very, very easy to manage. I can take the least powerful, like let's say a Power Node Edge, which is a very small little amplifier streamer. Sounds fantastic. This will run it all day long. By the time you get to the tower product, we're getting, tonality and bass extension in an envelope that we've never been able to capture at this kind of price point. Keep in mind, we're looking at a $1,500 pair of towers, where traditionally, it's a vinyl wrap, and it doesn't have that sophisticated a driver complement, and it's just not as easy to put into a room and place. One of the things that we really concentrated on with this lineup, and it's again learning from what we did with PWM and with Synchrony, is I brought over some of the sensibilities from the CI world, where your demo shouldn't be at 75 dB. People don't have dinner and have speakers playing at 75 dB. They should be able to carry on a conversation, but there should be a certain amount of intelligibility about what comes out of the speaker. So low volume intelligibility on this product is absolutely incredible. You can have this playing in the background, we're having a conversation, you can be putting on CNN and you and I will understand everything that's happening. And that you can't put a figure on that. You have to look at every link in the chain. So even our amplifiers, the increments that we do in volume at the lower level are very small because I want people to nail it just right. It's actually amazing how you'll be able to put on a pair of these speakers and we'll be talking and you can understand it, and then I'll start dropping the volume further and further, and you can still understand everything that's happening to a much lower point than you would ever expect. That's a very practical, real world thing. If you're putting these in a dining room or in a master bedroom, low volume intelligibility is something that we've always had a focus on in the CI world. And our engineers took to it, they understood, but actually making it happen is a really difficult job to keep everything balanced and tuneful at a lower volume. It's a speaker that I don't want anybody having to stand on their head to incorporate into their home. It should sound great, it should look great, and actually I want the performance to surprise people, because it actually surprised our engineers when we were finished and went like, wow, at $1,500 we were able to do this with this kind of look. And from let's say a retailer standpoint, PWM, which is an on-wall product, which is also the center channel for Synchrony, is also the center channel for these ones in the surround channels. So you've got 3 SKUs here, 3 SKUs there, 3 SKUs in total for our Synchrony series, 9 models, and you can basically mix and match however your application is required. So from the retailer standpoint, there's that strong focus, and you start to run around and play around with the themes of what you can do with it, and the world is your oyster. Product launch will be around October 15th. They'll be in-house, they'll be in our barn by October 15th. I don't know when the actual launch date, it might be November 1st, but I know we're trying to get some early samples out to some reviewers so that they can hit the floor running and hopefully say a few nice things about it before the doors open.
Just a brief interruption, esteemed viewers. As you may know, I'm Tom Martin, Chief Content Officer of The Absolute Sound. We have a new product. It's on the Substack platform, and we're going to do some interesting things with Substack. First of which is reader questions and answers. Each Monday, readers will submit questions. We'll pick the most interesting ones and we'll answer the questions on Friday. We'll also have early access to articles and special blogs that don't appear anywhere else. We hope you'll join us. It's only a cost of a cup of coffee per month. Just check on the screen or in the show notes below. Thanks, and now back to the show.
So within the PSB lineup, our entry-level series, which is Alpha, had come up with the Alpha P3 and P5 conventional bookshelf product, which had done very well for us performance-wise. They did exactly what we wanted them to do. And then our idea was to take that conventional bookshelf platform and introduce to it amplification and introduce to it content management and content acquisition. And the whole idea is to try to eliminate all the weak links in the chain. So to be able to put a product which is not just a pair of speakers, but an actual bona fide sound system for somebody. If you want to manage something and get it the best, you have to design based on what's actually the specifics of a project rather than generalities. So, when you design a pair of bookshelves, you have no idea what amplifier is going to be strapped to it, whatever the source material and the sort. So luckily within Lenbrook we have BluOS. So BluOS is I'd say the premier interface for music management. We knew the kind of content that we could put into it and the level of resolution that we could have. We're in the same building as some of my best friends at NAD. So been around for 50 years, they've got their amplification game, and we have the speaker. So combining all three and no longer building on generalities. So NAD was not building on, I have no idea what speaker is going to be attached to it. No, they know exactly what speaker is going to be attached to it. Well, how much power does it need? Well, exactly the right amount. So this is a project where we can deliver into somebody's home a sound system that's very, very easy to deploy, very easy for them to understand because they use the user interface of BluOS, and the level of performance which is well beyond what you'd normally expect from such a small envelope and at such lower prices. So, when one is looking at a pair of loudspeakers at $1,300, well, that might be a little pricey. When one is looking at it as an entire sound system without any additional gear that you can basically plug in wireless, and I'll go back to what wireless is for us, and put a user interface in somebody's hand where they can access all kinds of content. So along with all the streaming that it does, you've actually got physical inputs. We've got an actual bona fide sub out, actual dedicated turntable input with a turntable pre, and then the usual suspects of optical, HDMI, and auxiliary, basically analog. You can have these wirelessly deployed in your house. Obviously, you still have to plug them into power, but when we say wireless, when we say true wireless, we do not require a tether cable between the left and the right speaker to do high resolution. We do not require a tether cable between the left and right speaker to do updates. So if you have a fireplace and you plug one in there and one in there, there's no additional cables that you have to bury at any point in time. They speak to each other, and they speak to each other in a very kind of simplistic format, but one that is true. So there's a primary speaker where all the I/O, all the content goes into. The secondary speaker has one job, and that's to listen to the primary speaker. It does not listen to the network. It does not listen to anything else. It basically gets its orders from this one. And as a result, syncing is absolutely bang on. When you listen to an image, it's bang there in front of you. There's no jitter. There's no messing around with. And it's just a very kind of controlled environment for any of the weird anomalies that happen in wireless transmissions. The key is being able to do a setup on many of these products. You don't want to bring it into somebody's home. You don't want to require a fourth-year physics degree to get this thing up and running. So on the BluOS side, and we're very, very focused on the user interface, we created a wizard for these that somebody gets into the house and they have such little to do. They plug it in, and it starts walking through. By the way, is this your network? Yes, it is. Do you want it to connect? Yes. Then it updates, and it starts playing a sound. And it goes, by the way, am I the left speaker or the right speaker? You hit that. What do you want to call it? Living room, dining room, kitchen? Kitchen. Guess what? You're done. At the end of the whole thing, it says, by the way, we're finished. The customer says, okay, and that's it. It should be as simple as that. I want my uncle, who's not a technophobe but not very technically inclined, to be able to put a pair of these in place and get them up and running. And depending on networking, we can get a pair of these up and running in like 6 minutes. And I think the wonderful thing is that once people hear the performance of it and it's easy to use. Dropping them in a second room is great. Dropping them in a third room, and at the end of the day, it's one app that sees all the rooms. There's a wonderful feature called Follow Me, where you're listening to, you could be listening to Jumping Jack Flash in the kitchen.
In like Bill Gates' house or something where it's just like following.
Yeah, it's so goofy that, I'm listening to this song, but you know what? I'm going from the kitchen, I'm done, I'm going out to the dining room, and boom, you hit Follow Me. These ones turn off, those ones light up. Just some of the little intrinsic things. And that's the beauty of Alpha IQ. All of it is built on a foundation of the user interface. And we're very conscious of the fact that if it's too complex, people just won't run with it. And we've been constantly refining our platform, our user interface platform, which is BluOS. And you can see some examples of the interface here, but the critical factor is trying to get it to the point where everything that you use the most is right in place. And I'll bring it up here on my screen, because that one's busy. And the theory of mise en place in restaurants, that which you use the most is closest to you. So, if it's something obscure, no, it can be behind like 3 layers. But if you look at something like this, and by the way, this is by zone. So the way you behave in the kitchen and the way you behave in the living room and the master bedroom might be different, but this learns your behavior. So you'll see right up at the top, and by the way, you can reorganize these layers any way you want to, but right out of the box, the most used items, that which you touch the most pops up. It populates right along the top here. So I happen to be a big Tidal user, and I religiously live on it, so that's going to populate, and it's going to be right there. Then, let's say beyond what you use the most, you want to have a series of presets. So when I go to bed, that's the channel I listen to all the time. Yeah, it might show up as a station, but I want to program what I want to wake up to. I want CNN as I'm walking towards my kitchen, boom, hit that, or whatever, because I like a good laugh. Most recent stations, and it's done in layers. Then the things that you use the least are further down. You have the option to layer it any way you want to. A lot of the serious granular level of detail, for example, like doing setup, where you're figuring out the bias of balance left to right if you want to do that, or managing a subwoofer, they're all there, but they're just a layer back because you're not going to
every day.
exactly
Set it and forget it.
right. And like many of these companies that have gotten onto the idea that we're fundamentally creatures of habit, somebody should be able to pull this out of their pocket and, oh, there I am. It's Tuesday, I'm hitting title again, and so on and so forth. We've also changed up the menu system so that along the back, if you're going to interact with the out of the ordinary, this is the home screen which we've been looking at. So we've got the most used, the presets here, recent stations I've listened to, recently played. But along here, you got your favorites. I haven't populated any favorites because I'm here right now, but all my, the stuff that I go to because whenever I'm in the mood, actually looking at music, the musical content. So there is the content section of it, and then there's the actual zone or the room section of it. So under music, and I've got like every streaming service on the planet here, but you tap on the one that you want, and you go into it, and it has the interface as if you are in Tidal or if in Spotify or whatever the case is. All your physical inputs, for example, in the case of Alpha IQ, they're along here. So if you want a Bluetooth or whatever the case is, it'll automatically go to Bluetooth. It also has some certain automatic functions, as in if you're listening to a piece of music in the room and you turn on your TV, you can actually get it to that the moment that the HDMI realizes that it's on, it'll go, okay, turn off the music, we're watching the TV now. That will automatically happen, so no one has to like fiddle around with it, it just happens. And then there is the search function, which I love. So players, so you've got every single player that's in here right now. So forget about players, think of this as like kitchen, living room, dining room, whatever the case is, they could all populate there. You've got the ability to adjust volume. If you're listening to a piece of music, but you're having a party and you want it to be in the kitchen and the dining room at the same time, you can group them together quite easily. It's almost instantaneous. And then take them apart again. The search function is kind of interesting because you can actually search by the music service that you want. So if you want to go look for something within Qobuz specifically, tap Qobuz, and the search will go specifically into that engine or Tidal or however you want it to. How much people will use this is their own thing. In reality, that home page is that mise en place. It's everything that people use the most right there in front of you, and it's the most logical way that people think. So it's a relatively, it's a big jump for us because we've been constantly refining the user interface, and it's just about to launch now. And in many cases, you don't even have to click it. So if I want to wake up to a certain radio station, my alarm clock's gone now because I simply go into this, I go into a zone, and in the menu system, well, let's do one. Okay, so now I'm in the home zone. I tap this up here, the little gear button. This is the kind of the more obscure, but again, setting your alarm, tap it, alarms. I set one for like 7 o'clock in the morning and so on, and it'll light up with whatever radio station or whatever piece of music I want, if I want to be that specific. Do I like to listen to music and then pass out? Yeah, I do. So sleep timer in like 15-minute increments. So it does so many more things than just act as a pair of speakers. And BluOS is, again, it's the party trick. It's the user interface that brings it all together. And it's not, the wonderful thing is it's not just native to, PSB. It's an NAD. It's in our BlueSound product, which BlueSound obviously has been the single biggest driving engine for BluOS because that was where we brought it all together initially. But now you've got a whole bunch of other partners that have fallen into play because it's starting to seem like, a user interface to when one would say Windows or one, because that is really the glue of how people interact with product. I think the moment that people realize that whether it be Android or whether it be iOS or PC, by the way, there's a PC interface for this as well. that these interfaces, it becomes a thing that you live with all the time. It becomes your remote control, and it does so much more for you. 15 years ago, having your phone on your bedside table was possibly a faux pas. Well, now it's an integral part of your life, and that's how you interact with so many other things in your home, whether it be your furnace or your audio system. These 3 colors just came out, the vivid colors. It took me so long to iron out these colors, but the moment I showed my son, he goes like, yeah, I want a pair of these in my room. And I go, no son, I want a pair of these in my room.